Hi there, I'm Joshua Farnsworth and welcome to my traditional woodworking school here in Earlysville, Virginia. Here in the third video on molding planes, Bill Anderson is going to be talking about how to choose a set of hollows and rounds for getting some really custom molding work. So we'll continue our series here on choosing molding planes, and there'll be more to come. So I hope you enjoy this.
The next group of molding planes we're going to talk about are the hollows and rounds. They often came in sets. This is a complete set, numbered 1 through 18. Here's a pair. You can see it's a pair of number 13s, like that, a hollow on the left and a round on the right. Hollows and rounds are planes that are not used with spring. They are used at any angle that you need to use to work through a profile. The real advantage of hollows and rounds are that, one, you're not limited by the grain direction or the stock that you're working with. You have the freedom and opportunity to cut a profile in any direction on any stock and make that profile in any way that you want. So that's an advantage over dedicated molding planes. The opportunity for flexibility and cutting moldings. Now I mentioned that they were numbered. That numbering system is basically has a convention, but not a standard. The convention was that they were numbered by increments of a 16th. So number 1 cuts an arc, a profile that's 1/16 of an inch wide, and that's the radius of the circle that it cuts. These planes, this arc right here, is a 60-degree arc. That means they cut 1/6 of the circumference of a circle. Well, it turns out, if you remember your geometry, that the width of a 60-degree arc is equivalent to the radius of the circle that arc is drawn from. That means the width of the plane here, if you measure that, gives you the radius of the circle that particular plane cuts. So these two planes here cut the inside curve and the outside curve of a circle of 14/16, otherwise known as 7/8 radius circle. Now, when I say this was a convention, what I mean is most makers, the numbers went up in 1/16 of an inch increments up to maybe about number 12, and then they started going up by 1/8 of an inch in some makers. Other makers continued on with 16ths. So there's that confusion. There are some makers who started out a number 2 plane was twice as wide as anybody else's number 2 plane. So that can be confusing. Here's another thing. Here's a number 8 pair of planes from another maker. This is made by Moon, an English maker. And here's my number 8 made by this English maker, Griffiths of Norwich, England. And you can clearly see that these two number 8s are different sizes. So not every maker used the same convention. When you're putting together a set of planes and wanting to have a graduated set of numbers, you need to think as well about, are the planes graduated not only in number, but also in actual sizes. So this particular set here was made by a single maker, Griffiths of Norwich, as I said, and all owned by a single user. So it's a matched set of planes. Planes that are put together from different makers to make up one particular pair, for example, are called Harlequin sets. And you can buy Harlequin sets of planes 1 through 18, all different makers, and hopefully graduated in size as well as in number. That's something to think about when you're looking for planes. So it's always important to be aware that one manufacturer's 8 might not be another manufacturer's 8. So let me just look at one plane here and show you some details about this plane. The part of the plane that the iron rests on is called the bed. The part that's in front of the iron, against which the wedge rests and pushes against the iron, this is called the breast. So we have the bed and the breast. That included angle there is generally in the range of 10 degrees, although it may vary from as small as 8 to as much as 12, depending on the maker. But 10 degrees is usually a very good wedge angle for a good mechanical joint. And then the bed angle can vary. These planes here are the most common bed angle, let me just put it this way, is 45 degrees. That's called the common pitch. So the angle of the bed is called pitch. Common pitch is 45. 5 degrees more than that, the next size up is called York pitch. 5 degrees beyond that, which would be 55 degrees, is middle pitch. And then the steepest pitch, 60 degrees, is called half pitch. So common, York, middle, and half pitch in increments of 5 degrees from 45, 50, 55, 60. Now, the higher pitched planes were meant for cabinet grade woods. They're also often called cabinet grade molding planes. And these are common grade. The ones that are set at 45 degrees are common grade. So that's something to look at. Very often there can be 45 degrees. Less often you'll see other pitches. And I've seen pitches that actually go up almost to the range of a scraper. In other words, 70, 80 degrees. The other thing is, if you look at this plane here and this one here, not quite so sure if it's completely obvious, but this plane, the iron, is skewed across the length of the sole. It's not square. This iron here is square across the sole. So this is a more common variation, easier to make these planes. These had a slight price bump to make a skewed plane. The advantage with a skewed iron plane is that depending on how well you selected your stock, how hard the stock is, the grain direction of the stock, et cetera, you may be able to plane across the grain and get a good molding. You probably have to scribe the shoulders of the molding. That's another story altogether, but planes that are skewed are more adapted for cutting across the grain as well, or with difficult grains. So we've got a selection of planes here. In terms of the kinds of planes, this, as I said, is a complete set. You could buy sets in half sets, which would be, for example, the even numbers, 2, 4, 6, 8, so on and so forth, or the other half set, which would be 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on and so forth. So a half set would be 9 pairs rather than 18 pairs. In terms of usefulness, the planes that you're most likely to want to be able to use are 4s, 6s, and 8s. Conversely, possibly 5, 7, and 9. In other words, a limited selection of sizes pretty much cover the range of sizes of moldings that one would make on cabinets and things like that. I would say that 75 or 80% of anything you might do would be covered by those 3 sets, 4, 6, and 8, for example. If you wanted to cover a wider range, you might add in someday a set of number 2s and number 10s, and that would probably cover 90% of anything you ever did. The numbering system in these planes goes up to 18, but the actual full range of planes that might be supplied go up to 24. So quite large planes, really for almost architectural on this scale, and very much cabinet level on this scale here.
If you're interested in learning traditional woodworking, come take a class at our school in Earlysville, Virginia. You You can also visit our website at WoodAndShop.com, where you'll find a bunch of free woodworking lessons, workshop tours, and our very popular tool buying guides. And make sure you subscribe to our free newsletter to get our latest articles and videos. Enjoy!